So just for starters, I want to give a heads up. Unfortunately, when I recorded this, the audio for whatever reason did not record correctly. So I had to mute the audio from the original film to be able to start this video. In this video, what I'm going to be doing is basically going through a tie rod install. I have upgraded from the OEM when I had kept it on for as long as I could. Knowing that I went from 31-inch tires to 38-inch tires, I knew my tie rods were going to go bad after a while, but I went ahead and still kept them on there because I didn't want to spend the money on an upgrade just yet. Finally, my tie rods gave out, so I started getting death wobble. Not a severe case of it, but it was a mild case of death wobble. So once I started realizing that I was getting that, I decided to go ahead and change up my tie rods. I ended up upgrading to the Rock Krawler because I want to more or less keep everything the same brand. So I went and used the Rock Krawler tie rod ends. As you can see here in the video, the audio is off. So unfortunately, I will have to talk through more or less what it is that I had gone through to do. Basically, I'm here explaining, as you can see, the tie rod, it is a lot thicker compared to the original OEM tie rod. You can tell I'm placing them next to each other. What you want to do is you want to measure out your tie rod, put it side by side to measure. You can tell the one on the top is the OEM one and the black one is the Rock Krawler one. You can tell both ends are chromoly and the center will be aluminum. That is exactly how I describe it on the Rock Krawler website. So let's go ahead and start with the install of the Rock Krawler tie rods. So as you can see here, what I'm going to be doing is quite simple. What you want to do is you want to line up both of the tie rods like I said before. When I get a measuring tape, this is how you'll be able to get a more or less accurate measurement. What you do is measure from one stud to the other. Then as you can see, more or less the measurement that I ended up getting was in between 59 and 1/4. So you want to do is you want to put the stud for the Rock Krawler, you want to put both of them. I had already gone ahead and did the passenger side, but I'll show you exactly how to do it. On the driver side one, you'll slide the stud from top to bottom and you'll want to hand tighten the bottom nut. They are the tight ones. So what you want to do then is measure from one stud to the other stud. Make sure you get more or less the same measurement. As you can see here is between the 59 and 1/4. That's how you know more or less you are within the correct measurements for the tie rods. Now what you want to do is, on top of not only measuring from stud to stud, what you want to measure is the thread from each tie rod end. You want to make sure that they are exactly the same, more or less. You don't want to be out more on one side than the other because you will be having issues later on when you will adjust it. You can see I measured out both sides, measured out one end, and then I measured on the other one. So you can see here I'm roughly about 2 inches, while on the other side I was roughly about 2.5 inches. So what you want to do is you want to loosen both of the nuts and adjust it from there. As you can see, what I ended up doing is taking out the tie rod end. And what I simply did was use some anti-seize. Like that, if you go to do any future adjustments, you don't have any issues with it rusting or seizing at all. So you can see I put some on the inside thread and on the tie rod end itself on the thread. Now what you're going to end up doing is aligning it. And then what you want to do is just start turning it to once you start getting it in. Once it is holding, just quickly super speed through it. You're going to go all the way back to where it was originally. You want it to stay more or less where you had the measurements from when you first started setting it up. You don't want to be too far off because once you go to install it back in, it will be harder to adjust the tie rod. Then of course, what you do on one side, you're going to want to go ahead and do on the other side. And same thing as before, just go ahead and loosen out the tie rod end. You want to take it all the way out. All you need to do is speed through it. Pretty sure you won't go this fast. So once you manage to take off the tie rod end, it's obviously easier with some help. Once you have removed it, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and grab the anti-seize lubricant. Again, I'm going to use the same one as I've been using. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and grab it and put it all over the thread of the tie rod end. You can never use too little of this. It will always help you in the future when you're going to go do a adjustment. You don't want to run into the issue where it gets seized or rusted or any problems like that, because it will make it harder to adjust in the future. So you can see I went throughout the whole thread. I just applied a light coat so that the whole thread can be covered. Obviously, once I go to put it back in, it's going to push some of it out, which is fine. All you gotta do is go ahead and wipe it out. Now you're gonna grab some more and you're gonna go ahead and put it inside the tie rod itself, just as you can see what I'm doing right here. So once you do that, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and place the tie rod back in. We'll just super speed through this. Now you want to get it back to where you had it originally, more or less in the same area. You want, like I said before, you want to keep the same measurement. Like that makes it easier for you to adjust it before you put it back in. It's all about trying to stay within the same measurement as the OEM one. Once you put it back all the way down, you want to readjust it, more or less put it facing the same side. So you can see I have both ends facing towards me. Now I'll flip it back around and to finish adjusting it. So now comes the most important part of installing the tie rod. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure that both ends are the same. So once you have applied the anti-seize lubricant on both tie rod ends, you're going to put it all the way back in, like you see here, and you're going to loosen the nuts on both ends. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure that both ends are the same, sticking out just the same amount. The reason is you don't want one side sticking out more than the other, because that will make the weaker end. As you can see, it's really easy to adjust. All you need to do is twist it, and you can put it to whatever size you want. I have brought out just a little bit so you can see. Now when you measure it, like I said, you can use a measuring tape or ruler, whatever is easier for you. You're going to be able to see right here I had a 2.5, and you can just turn it back. I was trying to get a little under 2.5 inches. Like that, both sides can be sticking out just about the same, and the tie rod itself from stud to stud would measure the same as the OEM tie rod. Now, it's not that hard. All you need to do is retighten the nuts, and that's it. You are basically done readjusting the tie rod. It's not that hard at all. So now we have the ends on the tie rod adjusted. I will do the finishing tightening afterwards. For right now, what you're going to want to do is grab the tie rod. It's a lot easier if you have help. You're going to go ahead and lift it, line it up to the holes on both ends. Once it is inside, you're going to want to go ahead and put the washer and the nut. And you just kind of want to put it in to mock it up. You don't want to put it to hand tight. You just want to put it in more or less. We're going to hold it in for you on both ends. No, yeah. Once you're on both ends, you're going to notice that it's going to be a lot easier to work with. Then, as you tighten the tie rod, it'll start locking itself in place. So you're going to use a 7/8 socket. Now this is a lot easier to do with the tires off, but I didn't want to go through the hassle of removing the tires. It's gonna get to a point where the bolt is gonna keep spinning. So once you're there, flip over to the other side, start tightening it down, more or less. There is a lot more room on the driver's side, obviously, but it's fine. So you're going to keep tightening it. You're going to keep on tightening until it's set in place. So once we're done with that, we'll get back. Okay, so one thing I didn't mention was before you put in the tie rod, right on the inside of it, look on this side. Right there, you'll see the nipple. So you need to put the oil in for both. See the nipple right there? So you need to put the oil in, or sorry, the grease. You can use any standard grease gun to be able to apply the oil, grease. Once you put the grease in, go ahead and you want to put it in and tighten up the top and then the bottom. So Jeep factory specs would be 67 pounds of torque on the tie rod stud. So I tie it to 67 pounds on both sides. Pretty nice and tight. I'm actually going to go for a spin right now. See how it comes out. I'll let you guys know if it's any better. Hopefully this fixed the issue that I'm having. It should. Ahora empezaste a grabar.
¿Quién dijo que? Ah, pero estás viendo por mis lentes.
Ahora es cuando empezaste a grabar. ¿Ve? Ahora te escuché.
Ay, sí. Okay.
Tú ni estabas grabando. Ah, yeah. Okay, so I installed the tie rod. I installed the tie rod end for the drag link onto the pitman arm side. I did not install the steering stabilizer because I wanted to get the full effect of if anything's loose. Hopefully we'll survive this. Worst case scenario, I fall off a mountain or fall off the road.
Wow.
This is my mascot. Still haven't figured out a name for him.
Wow.
When I get a name for him, we'll know exactly what to call him.
Okay.
Alright, so here we go. So far we haven't died.
Se va a llamar.
Let's keep going. So the steering itself feels a lot tighter, which is exactly what I wanted. I had the issue where I had the steering wandering. I have to adjust the steering wheel, obviously. So you can tell it's off by a lot.
Qué machuco lo que estaba.
The adjustment will come soon. I guess it's kind of my fault for not adjusting it, but I'll adjust it now when we get back. So far so good, as you can tell, nothing's falling apart. I'm just gonna go around the block to see more or less how it is. And we'll go down this road because I know this road has a couple of bumps here and there. ¿Cómo se siente? ¿Segura?
Con un poco de pánico, tengo miedo a morir.
Pensando que lo
Porque
vamos a morir con esto.
Se me va a caer la pierna con la picadura de abeja, pero todo bien. El Jeep se siente.
No steering stabilizer whatsoever, and it took those bumps. It actually took those holes. They're pretty decent holes, like a champ. So I'm pretty sure this upgrade helped it out. Again, that was the Rock Krawler tie rod, and then I did a Moog tie rod end on the drag link. So until the car stays pretty straight, I'm gonna have to get it aligned, obviously, once I'm done with this, to make sure everything's perfect. Once I changed the ball joints, because I had the issue with the ball joints also, that's part of the problem. Alright, so we'll go this way. Now I'm going to try to go down a bumpy road to see how it handles. So far so good. The install is a quick install. Like, subscribe,
Like,
keep following the channel. Follow our helper back here.